It started on a Wednesday, but not the kind of Wednesday that carries any significance. No anniversaries, no arguments, no strange omens. Just a dull, gray midweek evening where I was stuck in traffic, halfway listening to a podcast and halfway hating myself for not taking the other route home. I wasn't supposed to be there. That wasn't even my usual drive. Construction had blocked my exit, pushed me down some side street that curled around like a snake and spat me out in a neighborhood I hadn't been in since high school. And then I saw her car. It was hers. No doubt about it. Same dent on the side mirror from when she misjudged the garage. Same vanity plate that she swore was clever but never explained. Parked in front of a townhome with a half-dead lawn and Christmas lights still clinging to the gutter even though it was spring. I pulled over like something yanked the wheel for me. I wasn't thinking about anything except how strange it was. She said she was at dinner with her cousin that night. Said she'd be across town. But her car was there, in this quiet cul-de-sac, in front of a house I didn't recognize. I told myself it could have been a mistake. Someone else's car. Coincidence. I almost drove away. Almost. But I stared at that house too long. And that's when the porch light flicked on. The door opened and she stepped out. She was laughing. She had that look. Eyes a little dazed, cheeks flushed, lips slightly parted like she just said something she knew she shouldn't have. And then he followed her out. Tall, smug, wearing a shirt I recognized. Not because I'd seen him wear it before. Because it was mine. One I thought I lost in a gym locker months ago. My stomach folded in on itself. I didn't get out of the car. Couldn't. I just sat there, lights off, engine humming low. They were standing too close. His hand touched the small of her back in that casual muscle memory kind of way. Like it wasn't new. Like it had happened so many times it no longer meant anything. She tilted her head, said something, and he laughed. Then she leaned in and kissed him fast, nothing dramatic. Just a kiss. The kind you give someone before going inside to finish the night. I felt everything inside me shift in that second like something cracked and poured out into my lungs. I waited until they both disappeared back inside. Then I drove. Not home. Not anywhere, really. Just away. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. My body was humming like a phone on silent. Numb. I stopped at a gas station 20 miles from the city. I bought water, gum, and a scratch ticket for no reason at all. I won $2 and threw it away. I didn't say anything to her that night. She got home at midnight, hair damp like she'd just showered, a faint smile still clinging to her face. She kissed me on the cheek like she always did. I let her. She asked if I'd eaten. I said no. She went to bed. I stayed on the couch, staring at the dark until the sun started to seep into the blinds. The next day, I told myself I needed proof. Cold, inarguable, written in stone proof. Something that could scream the truth in her face so loud she couldn't talk over it. I couldn't ask her outright. She was too good at lying. Too quick with explanations, too calm under fire. She could gaslight a priest and make him confess instead. But the universe? It has a sense of humor. 3 days later I got a call. Not from her. From a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened, it was her voice, but not the way I was used to hearing it. She was panicked, crying, words tumbling over themselves in whispers and gasps. She said, "Please, don't read the text. Please, I know you saw it. Just don't read it. I can explain. Please, just call me back." But it was already too late. The message came after I'd already opened her phone. And what I read tore the floor out from under me. Her phone had been a war zone for weeks. But that night I found it unguarded on the bathroom counter while she was in the shower, humming along to music like her world wasn't crumbling. She never left it out. Not once. And yet there it was. Lit up, screen buzzing with a text preview from someone saved only as T. No heart emoji. No full name. Just a letter. Like even her lies had grown tired of trying. I don't know what made me open it. Curiosity is too soft a word. It was more like instinct, like something old and primal finally woke up inside me and grabbed the wheel. I didn't even hesitate. My thumb slid across the screen and I stepped into a part of her life I was never meant to see. The first thing I saw was a photo. Not obscene, but intimate. Her feet on someone's dashboard, crossed at the ankles, painted toenails, the hem of a sundress just barely grazing her thighs. I knew that sundress. I bought it for her on our last trip to Charleston. She'd worn it on the second night, the one she said was too pretty to waste. Guess she found the right occasion for it. Then the texts. Walls of them. Long ones. Short ones. Voice notes. Pictures of wine glasses, inside jokes I didn't understand, and one that knocked the breath out of me like a punch to the ribs. Last night was the first time I didn't feel like someone's wife. Just me. Just yours. I scrolled and scrolled, trying to find a timestamp that made it all less real. Something old. Something that said it was over. But it wasn't. That night I saw them on the porch? That was the same night she sent a voice message, her voice all sugar and secrets. You still taste like the champagne. I'm not even gonna wash the sheets. I dropped the phone. Not out of shock. Out of rage. Cold, venomous rage. I wanted to tear the mirror off the wall and throw it through the window. But I didn't. I stood there, frozen, staring at my reflection with this blank look that I didn't recognize. I didn't look angry. I looked hollow. She stepped out of the shower, towel wrapped tight, face glowing like she'd just returned from vacation, and said, "What are you doing with my phone?" She asked it so casually, like I was the one out of line. Like I had to explain something. I didn't answer. I just handed it to her. She looked at the screen, then back at me. Her face drained of color like a sink suddenly pulling the plug. She didn't ask what I saw. She knew. She went pale, then pink, then gray. Her mouth opened slightly, but she didn't speak. So I did. Is this a joke? Tell me it's a joke. Lie to me if you have to. But do not just stand there like this. And then the panic set in. Not remorse. Not guilt. Panic. She lunged for the phone like it was a grenade and she could still smother the blast. You weren't supposed to see that, she said, voice cracking, tears already falling like she knew the script and skipped to the end. Not supposed to? I laughed, actually laughed because the absurdity was louder than her sobbing. That's your explanation? You were supposed to keep the affair better hidden. She tried to grab my hand, but I backed away like she was on fire. Please, she said, it's not what it looks like. Then explain it to me, I snapped. Explain how a man wears my shirt, kisses my wife, sleeps in my bed, and it's somehow not what it looks like. And her answer? I didn't mean for it to go this far. I wanted to scream. To smash something. To leave. But I couldn't move. My legs wouldn't work. My mind was a blender of betrayal and fury and disbelief. She kept talking, but I wasn't listening. I just kept hearing that voice message in my head. Just me. Just yours. She stood there, dripping, shaking, whispering a storm of excuses. And I just watched her. Like a stranger I'd never met. Because whoever I married wasn't this person. And I had no idea who was standing in front of me anymore. She followed me down the hallway barefoot, towel slipping, mascara beginning to smudge under the corners of her eyes, trying to catch up with me like a shadow trying to stick to something already sprinting away from the light. Her voice kept rising, cracking, shifting tones like she couldn't decide whether to beg or blame. You don't understand what it's been like, she shouted. And I stopped. I turned, slowly, like something ancient and mechanical. And I looked at her, really looked, and realized I didn't care about what it had been like for her. Not now. Not here. She must have seen that flicker of emptiness behind my eyes because her posture shifted. The pleading cracked into something sharper. Her hands balled into fists and she hissed through her teeth like I'd cornered her. You've been distant, Mike. You think I just wanted this? You think I woke up one day and thought, let me blow up my entire life? You've been cold. You don't talk anymore. You don't even look at me. I laughed again, that dry, humorless laugh that sounds more like an exhale. You think that's a reason to crawl into bed with someone else? A cold husband? That's your argument. I didn't say it was right, she snapped, towel clutched to her chest like armor. But I was lonely. Lonely, I repeated. The word tasted like poison. So you let tea keep you warm. Her face hardened. Just for a second. Like the tears were gone and now it was war. I felt alive with him, she said. And just like that, she shot me in the chest without a weapon. I didn't have to pretend. He listens. He doesn't make me feel like I'm just furniture in his life. I stepped closer. She flinched, but I didn't touch her. I wanted her to see my face up close when I said it. Then go be furniture in his life, I whispered. Because whatever this was, this thing you set on fire and watched burn, it's not yours anymore. She stared at me like I'd slapped her, but she didn't cry again. Not this time. Something colder had taken root behind her eyes. That cruel little spark she always saved for strangers at parties when she was bored, when she wanted to toy with someone and still walk away admired. You think you're the victim here? She said, voice low now. Calculated. You think this was easy for me? You gave up first. You shut down. I tried to fix us. I tried, Mike. And while you were trying, I said, you were also screwing around with some guy who wears other people's clothes like trophies. She scoffed. Oh, please. That shirt? You left it in your car for 2 months. You don't even remember what's yours anymore. That line. That one line did something to me I didn't expect. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't break anything. I just turned around, walked to the closet, and started pulling out every piece of clothing I'd ever bought her. Every gift, every souvenir, every pair of earrings I watched her lie about loving. I piled them on the floor in the living room like a funeral pyre waiting for flame. She watched in silence. Didn't stop me. Didn't help. Just stood at the edge of the carpet, arms crossed now, towel tucked tight, lips thin and bitter. You don't get to play heartbroken, I said without looking at her. You don't get to rewrite the story now that it's inconvenient. I was never enough for you, she said behind me, barely audible. I turned slowly. You were too much of the wrong things. And too little of the one thing I actually needed, loyalty. She opened her mouth, closed it again. For the first time, she had no comeback. I left the house that night. Didn't even pack. Just grabbed my keys, my wallet, my rage, and walked out. She didn't follow. She didn't text. The silence was a better apology than anything she could have said. But the storm wasn't over. Because 2 days later, I got a message from him. And that's where things really began to unravel. I didn't recognize the number at first. It was early, around 7 a.m., and I was in a motel with humming lights and paper-thin walls, lying on a bed that smelled like detergent and dust. I hadn't slept. My eyes felt like sandpaper, my hands still clenched without realizing it. When my phone buzzed, I stared at it for a while. There's a certain pause you take when you know a message is going to change something again. And this one did. The name wasn't saved. Just a number. But the message was short. Direct. We should talk. No lies. Just truth. T. I stared at the screen like it had spoken out loud. It felt like he was watching me somehow, like the phone had become a portal and he was on the other side, waiting for me to open the door. I didn't respond. Not right away. I paced the room. Checked out the cracked ceiling. Took a shower. Tried to pretend it didn't rattle me. But of course it did. Because what kind of man reaches out to the husband of the woman he's been secretly involved with? What kind of man wants to talk? By noon I gave in. I told myself it was curiosity. Closure. Revenge. Something. Anything. I texted back. 1 hour. Public place. Coffee house on East 9th. If you're late, I'm gone. He responded instantly. I'll be there. I didn't know what to expect. Some smug, overconfident moron with a jawline and a cheap cologne addiction? Someone who'd strut in with a story, a smirk, and a fake apology? But when he walked through the door, everything I thought I knew twisted sideways. He looked normal. Clean button-down. Slightly wrinkled slacks. Thinning hairline. No swagger. No arrogance. Just a guy. Like someone you'd sit next to on a plane and never remember. He spotted me and walked over without hesitation. Sat down. No handshake. I'm Tom, he said quietly. I didn't respond. Just stared. He nodded like he expected that. She lied to both of us, he started. I leaned forward. Oh, now you're a victim too? He raised his palms, calm. Not looking for pity. I just want you to hear the whole thing. Then do what you want. You deserve that much. I didn't know why I let him speak. Maybe part of me wanted to know how deep the betrayal really went. Maybe I wanted to see if she was as fake with him as she was with me. She told me you were separated. That she was staying with friends because the marriage had fallen apart months ago, he said. She said you were cold, distant, controlling. That you'd moved on. I shook my head slowly. So what, you believed her? Didn't think to ask questions? He sighed. I did. And at first, she was hesitant. Said she didn't want to involve me. But the more we talked, the more she opened up. It felt real. She talked about you a lot. In past tense. My chest tightened. She was never staying with friends. She was coming home every night. Sleeping next to me. Lying every single day. He nodded like he'd already suspected that. Then reached into his bag. Look, he said, pulling out his phone. I'm not showing you this to hurt you. But I think you need to see what she really is. He scrolled and handed it over. I should have said no. I should have walked out. But I didn't. I took the phone. And saw everything. Texts that contradicted her version of every conversation we'd had in the last 3 months. Her telling him about my habits, my fears, my weaknesses, mocking them like they were punchlines. Photos of my house, my kitchen, my backyard, my bedroom. Pictures taken without me knowing. Captions like, imagine being this blind and still thinking you're in control. I gave the phone back. No words. Just gave it back. He leaned back, guilt deep in his face. I broke it off last night. When I realized what she'd done. She lost it. Screamed at me. Called me a coward. Said I was just like you. That line hit me sideways. Just like me. He nodded. She said you were weak. That you'd never leave. That you'd forgive her eventually. Because that's what you do. Something inside me twisted. Snapped. And then reformed into something colder than before. Thanks for the info. I said. Standing up. I don't need anything else. Tom stood too. Listen. I know I don't deserve. Don't. I cut in. I'm not here to redeem you. I'm here to bury what's left of this lie. And as I walked out of that cafe, I realized something. She hadn't just betrayed me. She enjoyed it. She turned it into sport. Entertainment. And now, she was going to find out what happens when the man you thought was harmless finally stops loving you. I didn't drive home right away. I circled the city for hours, taking streets I hadn't seen since I was a kid, passing places that used to mean something. Ice cream shops, bookstores, bars where we used to pretend we were in love. Everything looked faded now, like the color had been sucked out of it the second I found out who she really was. It was around 9 p.m. when I pulled up to the house. Lights were on. Her car was in the driveway. Curtains open like always. She never thought anything she did needed hiding. The front lawn hadn't been mowed in days. Trash cans were still out from Monday. She always nagged me about that. And now I looked at them like they were trophies of her unraveling. I didn't go in right away. I stood by the front door for a long time listening. The TV was on. Some reality show echoing through the house like nothing had happened. Like the last 72 hours hadn't taken a sledgehammer to everything I believed in. Then I walked in. She was on the couch, blanket wrapped around her legs, bowl of popcorn on her lap, like it was just another casual evening in her perfectly choreographed life. She looked up and smiled, like she hadn't tried to rewrite our marriage in a stranger's bed. There you are, she said softly, like I'd come home from a business trip. I've been texting you. I didn't respond. I walked past her, into the kitchen, poured a glass of water, not because I was thirsty, but because I needed something to hold so I wouldn't throw a lamp. When I came back, she was sitting up now. Alert. Eyes narrow. Where have you been? I met him, I said calmly. Too calmly. Her mouth twitched. Who? I laughed once, sharp. You know who? She went silent. The popcorn bowl was suddenly very still in her lap. She didn't touch it again. What did he tell you? Oh, you mean besides the fact that you painted me as some cold, pathetic husband who doesn't even know when he's being mocked in his own house? She stood up, dropping the blanket. Mike, I didn't. You took pictures, I said, stepping forward now, voice rising whether I liked it or not. Of our bedroom. Our dinners. You turned my life into content for your little affair. Let me explain, she said, and her voice cracked, not from guilt, but from panic. The kind of panic people feel when they lose control of the story. I stared at her. Why? So you can manipulate me into thinking this was my fault again. I was angry. You made me feel invisible. No, I said, pointing. Don't twist this. You didn't feel invisible. You felt bored. There's a difference. You wanted to feel powerful. You wanted someone to chase you again. So you used me. You used him. And now, you're out of strings. She folded her arms, face hardening again. That cold, venomous version of her rising to the surface. So what now? You want me to beg? Cry? Is that waddle make you feel like a man again? I walked closer, just enough so she could see exactly what had changed in me. No, I don't want you to beg. I want you to realize that I'm not the one who lost something. She tilted her head, fake calm, fake defiant. And what are you going to do, Mike? Leave. I already did, I said. This, I gestured to the room, to her, to everything. This is just me collecting the ashes. She blinked. Once, twice. Then she snapped. You think you're the victim here? You let this marriage rot. You stopped caring. I tried to make it work. I waited for you to show up for me again. But you didn't. So don't stand there pretending like I just went rogue. You left me long before I ever touched anyone else. I stared at her, heart numb now. The weight in my chest had settled into something solid, something permanent. I left you, I said, shaking my head slowly. No. You left me the moment you decided the truth wasn't worth telling. You left me when you decided my dignity was worth less than your attention span. She opened her mouth again, but I held up my hand. You don't get another monologue. You don't get to rewrite this one. I turned and walked to the stairs. She didn't follow. Not this time. I packed 2 suitcases. Didn't take everything, just what mattered. I could have fought for the house. I could have made her suffer. But she was already living in the ruins she created. That was punishment enough. As I walked out for the second and final time, she called after me. Not yelling. Not crying. Just one word. Mike. I didn't stop. Didn't turn. Because the man she was calling to didn't exist anymore. And the silence I left behind was the only answer she'd ever get. I didn't go to a friend's place. Didn't crash at my brother's. I didn't want comfort. I didn't want questions. I wanted stillness. Isolation. Somewhere the echo of her voice couldn't follow me. I booked a rental cabin 2 hours outside the city. No Wi-Fi, no neighbors, just wine through trees and a fridge full of bottled water and silence. The kind of place people run to when they don't want to be found. That's exactly what I needed. The first night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the tick of an old clock on the wall. My thoughts were too loud. Every scene from the last few weeks replayed with crystal clarity. Her hands around that popcorn bowl. Her voice saying he made her feel alive. The picture of my bedroom from someone else's phone. It wasn't pain anymore. It was precision. Every memory was a pin pushed through my skin, slow and deliberate. By morning, I thought maybe I'd cry. Or scream. Or punch something. But instead I wrote. I don't know why. I found a notepad in the drawer next to the couch. Started scribbling. Letters, thoughts, fragments. Things I never got to say. Things I was too stunned to put into words when I was standing in front of her. I wrote this. You didn't just cheat on me. You weaponized trust. You turned my silence into permission and my forgiveness into sport. You kept a scoreboard and I didn't even know I was playing. I filled 6 pages in 2 hours. Then I stopped. Because my phone buzzed again. I hadn't turned it off completely, just muted it. One part of me wanted to pretend the world didn't exist. The other part knew she'd try to reach me. And she did. 12 missed calls. 14 texts. 2 voicemails. And the last message? I'm pregnant. I sat there motionless. Everything in my chest froze. I didn't believe it. Not right away. My first thought wasn't, oh God. It was, here it is. The next move. Because that's what it felt like. A move. A calculated piece of theater. The exact kind of twist she'd used to reset the board. Keep me tethered. Flip the narrative. You can't walk away now, Mike. There's a life involved. I didn't respond. I stared at the screen until it dimmed, then turned the phone off entirely. The next 2 days were quiet. The kind of quiet that felt padded. Protected. I went on walks. I cooked food I barely tasted. I didn't tell anyone where I was. It was just me, that cabin, and the dull ache of trying to rebuild something out of the ruins. On the 3rd night, I turned the phone back on. 37 messages. The last one wasn't from her. It was from her sister. I hadn't heard from her since the wedding anniversary 2 years ago. She never liked me much. Said I was too measured for someone like her sister. But the message was short. Unpolished. Rushed. Call me. It's about her. Something's wrong. My stomach turned over. I called. She picked up after half a ring. No greeting. No warmth. She told him you hit her, she said flatly. She told Tom you were abusive. That she had bruises. That's why he showed up at your job today. He thought he was protecting her. I didn't speak. Mike, she said, tone lower now, I don't know what's happening with her, but it's getting dark. You need to protect yourself. Protect myself. From the woman I gave my name to. From the woman now trying to turn my silence into guilt. I thanked her. Hung up. Then I opened a blank email, started typing, and attached every screenshot Tom had sent me. Every message. Every lie. I sent it to myself, my lawyer, my brother. Because the game had changed. And if she wanted war? She just got it. 2 days later, a letter was slid under my cabin door. No postage. No envelope. Just folded paper with my name written across it in her handwriting. The kind she used on birthday cards and sticky notes she left on the fridge when she still pretended to care. I stared at it for a while. Didn't touch it at first. The handwriting looked shaky, uneven. Not her usual self-assured loops. It felt like something diseased had been dropped at my doorstep. Eventually, I unfolded it. It wasn't long, but every word dripped with manipulation dressed up as vulnerability. I'm scared. I miss you. I've made mistakes, but I'm not the only one. Please don't shut me out. I know what I said about the baby. It wasn't a lie. I'm late. I've never been late before. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm disappearing. If you stop loving me, I'll disappear. She always did that, used fear as currency. When she didn't get what she wanted, she sold you a tragedy. Sometimes real, sometimes manufactured, but always convenient. The timing was surgical. She knew I'd shut everything down. She knew I needed space. So she flooded it with her voice, her drama, her desperation. The way an arsonist returns to the ashes and tries to pretend they didn't strike the first match. But I didn't write back. Instead, I made an appointment with a lawyer. Not a divorce lawyer. Not yet. A reputation defense attorney. Someone who specialized in personal cases with potential for public damage, domestic allegations, character attacks, the kind of nuclear fallout people like her play with when cornered. We met in the city. Clean office. Clear eyes. She dealt with people like my wife before. She said the same thing her sister did, only sharper. Get ahead of it. Don't let her write your ending. So I compiled everything. Screenshots, voice notes, the picture of my shirt, messages from Tom, the timeline, the contradictions. And then I got a call from work. Apparently, someone had emailed HR with an anonymous concern about my behavior. Accused me of being verbally unstable at home and creating an unsafe emotional environment. No names. No details. Just vague poison. I knew who it was. It wasn't about getting me back anymore. It was about breaking me. If she couldn't control me, she'd discredit me. If she couldn't have me, she'd smear me. And the worst part? She was good at it. She'd built a version of herself so fragile and sweet in public that nobody would question her. People saw her and thought, harmless, soft-spoken, the kind of woman who apologizes when you bump into her. But I knew better. I knew the way her voice could switch mid-sentence when you called her out. I knew the venom she spat in whispers when no one was listening. I knew what it felt like to have your dignity peeled off you one sentence at a time. So I got loud. I called my boss directly, sent everything to HR with dates, messages, and the letter she left at the cabin. I laid it all out, not with anger, but with cold, calculated truth. I refused to let her version go unchecked. And that same day, the police called me. Someone had filed a report. No charges. Just a wellness concern. Said I'd disappeared. That I'd been acting unstable. They asked if I was okay. If I'd been violent. If I needed help. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because this was the script she'd written in her head, playing out in real time. I told them I was fine, calm, cooperative. Invited them to verify anything they needed. When I hung up, I sat on the edge of the motel bed, staring out the window, watching a thunderstorm roll over the trees. She wasn't trying to fix anything. She was trying to erase me and replace me with a villain that made her look like a survivor. And suddenly it all clicked. The texts, the stories she told Tom, the letter, the HR report, the police call. She wasn't spiraling. She was setting the stage. Because some people don't just want to escape the fire, they want to be carried out of it, crying while everyone claps for how brave they are. And if I didn't stop her, she'd light the match herself. I didn't go back to the cabin that night. I couldn't. I didn't trust that place anymore, not after the letter under the door, not after the call from HR, not after the police asked if I was unstable. So I booked a different motel under a different name, drove 2 counties over, and turned off my phone again. It wasn't paranoia, it was survival. Because if she was setting the stage, then I was no longer just a man who got betrayed. I was now the antagonist in her version of the story. And she was building it brick by brick, lie by lie. The next morning, I met Tom again. He asked for it. Said he had something I needed to see. Against every instinct I had left, I agreed. We met in a parking garage. Quiet. Empty. Cold air echoing off the walls like we were trading secrets during a war. He handed me a USB drive, no small talk, no coffee. She's not pregnant, he said. I didn't move, just stared at him. I figured, I replied. But prove it. He nodded. She texted me 2 nights ago. Said she might have gotten it wrong and didn't want to scare me. But then she followed it up with, let's keep it between us. Mike doesn't need to know everything yet. My jaw clenched. She's not trying to win anyone back, I said. She's trying to turn both of us into shields for whatever mess she's about to make. Tom nodded slowly. I've dealt with liars, but she's different. She lies with purpose. Like every sentence is a chess move. She's not playing chess, I muttered. She's writing a tragedy. She just hasn't decided who dies in the 3rd act. We stood in silence for a while. Then Tom said something I didn't expect. She scared me, man. When I broke it off, she didn't cry. She didn't beg. She smiled. Said, you'll be back. He always comes back. Like this was a movie she'd watched a dozen times and already knew the ending. I didn't say goodbye when I left. Just drove. Popped the USB into my laptop in a diner with greasy menus and old men arguing about baseball. Opened the folder. Everything was there. Recordings. Screenshots. A spreadsheet of the dates and messages. A note titled backup in case she burns everything. Tom had made a copy of the digital wreckage before she could nuke it all to hide the evidence. He'd been afraid of her too. And buried deep inside the folder was a voice memo. She didn't know it was being recorded. She was laughing. You know what's funny? Her voice crackled through my earbuds. Mike still thinks if he just waits long enough, I'll come crawling back. He doesn't get it. This isn't about love. It's about control. He needs to think he was the one who left. It makes it easier for him to sleep at night. I paused the recording, took a deep breath. There it was, the core of her. Not scared. Not sorry. Not broken. Strategic. She didn't want reconciliation. She wanted the last word. And I was done letting her have it. So I made a decision. I met with the attorney again and authorized a counternarrative. A preemptive legal statement. A controlled release of documents should anything surface publicly. I wanted my story locked down and bulletproof. Then I went one step further. I filed a temporary restraining order. Not because I was afraid she'd hurt me physically, but because she'd already shown she was willing to destroy reputations, twist facts, weaponize pity. I needed a line drawn. In court. On paper. When the papers were served, she didn't call. She didn't cry. She didn't even text. Instead, I got an email. Just 5 words. So this is your war. No signature. No emotion. No regret. But she was wrong. This wasn't a war. This was the end of one. The email sat unopened in my inbox for an hour. I didn't need to read it to know what it said. I could feel it like static under my skin, her voice, cold and controlled, weaving venom through every line. I'd seen enough of her games. Heard enough of her doublespeak. The words weren't meant for clarity. They were meant for damage control. To bait me. to drag me back into the chaos so she could rewrite the ending one last time. I deleted it without reading a single word. That night, I stayed up going over the case files with my attorney. There were timelines now. Statements. A clean, forensic layout of her lies, all dated, sourced, documented. Every thread she pulled, every version of her story she adjusted depending on who she was talking to, lined up like dominoes. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was strategy. She'd been building an alternate reality while I was still trying to save a marriage. That next morning, my lawyer called me at 6:45 a.m. She filed a counterorder, she said, claiming harassment. Said you're emotionally abusive, that you've been following her, monitoring her communications, and that you threatened to ruin her life. My hands went cold. She backed it up with what? I asked. A screenshot of a message. One you never sent. Fabricated. We can prove it. It doesn't match your metadata. And it was time-stamped during the hours you were logged in with us at the legal office. She forged it, I said. Correct, she confirmed. But here's the catch, now there's a hearing. She's drawing you into court. She's hoping you'll show up angry. Or better, desperate. And there it was. The final performance. Her big finish. If she couldn't break me quietly, she'd try to drag me into the spotlight and perform her version for an audience. But I wasn't walking into that courtroom with rage. I was walking in with receipts. 2 days before the hearing, her sister called again. I hesitated before answering. I wasn't sure whose side she was on anymore. But what she told me knocked the air out of my lungs. She's getting ready to move, she said. Somewhere out of state. Said she needs a fresh start. She's telling people you're a danger. That you snapped, and she's scared of you. Mike. She's trying to disappear with the narrative. My pulse didn't even spike. I just nodded, staring at the floor, finally understanding the depth of the hole she was digging. Thanks, I said. But she's not going anywhere. Not until the truth catches up. The night before court, I sat alone in my car, parked outside a 24-hour grocery store. I watched strangers come and go, pushing carts, talking on the phone, living normal lives. I wondered how many of them were sitting on secrets. How many were holding up a version of themselves in public while quietly dismantling someone else behind the scenes. And then I thought about her, rehearsing tears, tightening her story, setting her voice to just the right pitch. She wasn't scared of me. She was scared of being seen. Actually seen. For who she was. Court day came fast. She showed up in a beige coat, her hair pinned up, makeup light, almost no jewelry. She wanted to look delicate. Victimized. Strategic minimalism. Her lawyer, lean, sharp-eyed, had papers ready and a face carved from marble. The image was perfect. Until we started. The judge was quiet, focused. My attorney led with the full digital chain, texts, voice memos, metadata, timeline inconsistencies, and the forged screenshot that unraveled in minutes. We presented Tom's affidavit clean, damning, apologetic but clear. And we played the voice memo. The one where she said I'd never leave. The one where she said this wasn't about love. The one where she said she wanted to control the ending. Her face didn't flinch, but her lawyer leaned over. Whispered something. Her eyes darted sideways. That was the moment. The illusion cracked. She knew it. The judge knew it. And so did I. Because sometimes justice doesn't come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes with a long, uncomfortable silence where the truth just sits there, unmovable, undeniable, and poisonous to the people who tried to bury it. The courtroom emptied slowly. She didn't look at me as she left. Not once. Not even in that final second where most people, even the worst kind, usually glance back, searching for a flicker of mercy, or maybe just confirmation that they still mattered. But she didn't. She walked out stiffly, heels quiet, face blank, flanked by her lawyer like some wounded monarch retreating from battle. Not defeated, just exposed. And for the first time since this started, I didn't feel hatred. I felt nothing. It was done. The judge saw through her. The fabricated messages, the manipulations, the performance. It all unraveled with surgical precision. Her petition was dismissed on the spot. The judge called it what it was: retaliatory, baseless, malicious. My counterorder was granted. Effective immediately. She couldn't contact me, couldn't approach me, couldn't reach out to my job, my friends, my family. Legally sealed. Line drawn. Afterward, I sat in the lobby outside the courthouse. Just sat there, watching people walk past me like I was invisible. Not because I was hiding, but because I was finally out of the spotlight she tried to trap me in. She hadn't won, but she hadn't exactly lost either. She'd just been seen, and for someone like her, that was worse than defeat. In the weeks that followed, I started rebuilding the little things. Changed my number. Got a new apartment. Clean, quiet, no shared memories. Bought a used couch that didn't smell like her perfume. New toothbrush. Different coffee mug. Threw away the old keychain she gave me just because 3 years ago. Sometimes healing doesn't come in breakthroughs. It comes in garbage bags. Tom texted once just to check in. I didn't reply. He had his own storm to sort through. We both played parts in a play we didn't audition for, but I wasn't interested in reruns. Her sister sent a single message: "I'm sorry. I should have said something sooner." I believed her. But forgiveness? That would take time. And I wasn't rushing anymore. There were no fireworks when it all ended. No satisfying crescendo. Just this quiet, thick silence and the slow return of my own voice in my head, no longer drowned out by hers. One night, maybe a month later, I sat on my new balcony with a drink in hand, city lights blinking in the distance. The air was still. No drama. No lies. Just me. And I thought, this is what freedom feels like. It's not grand. It's not triumphant. It's just honest. The kind of quiet where you don't flinch when the phone buzzes. The kind where your heart doesn't tighten at a memory. The kind where you can finally say her name in your mind without wincing. And if you're reading this, if you're in that place where everything feels like it's crumbling and you don't know who you are without her, listen to me, you'll survive this. You'll learn that being betrayed isn't the worst thing that can happen to you. The worst thing is forgetting who you were before they convinced you to be smaller, quieter, more manageable. Don't forget. And whatever you do, don't let them write your ending.